Hello. Let me set this up. Just 1 second. All right. So there's been a problem because wait, it's tilted. I thought I had programmed the live stream on YouTube, but apparently it didn't work. So I couldn't announce it on YouTube. I thought it was announced, but it's not. So I don't know if you guys are around and how long it will take you to join. But it was on Instagram and Facebook, so hopefully you caught it there. But as you come in, as always, say hello. Let me know where you're from, your name, if you want. You don't have to. But today's video, I thought we should talk a little bit about gear because we talked about music distribution last time. Well, a couple of times ago. And maybe some of you have questions as to what is truly necessary for producing your own music. And this is going to be more focused on actual self-producing music rather than concerts and stuff like that. But if you want to talk about what you need to play live, I'd be happy to do that as well. But we can maybe focus more on computers and interfaces, maybe guitar rigs, pedals. Some people like to go with amps. Some people prefer the modern stuff like the Kemper or the XFX, because maybe you don't know if you could record an amp in a house or an apartment. And so we can talk a little bit about that, but instead of just me talking about it, we'll just wait until we get some questions and then we'll take it from there. The thing is, since I haven't announced this and everybody's doing these live things, I wonder how long it will take to fill this room up. But in the meantime, I will talk about something completely different. We'll talk about chords. And this a little thing that I use for chords, which you guys asked a few videos ago on how to practice the chords, and I gave you a little taste of some of the chords that I think are useful. I know this has nothing to do with gear, but it's just not to put a little screen saying we'll be live in 10 minutes. I'd rather just talk about stuff, and then when people join, we'll get going with the topic. Okay, so as a little extra, this thing about chords, instead of just learning chords, memorizing them. Wow, this camera is today, I don't know what's going on. There you go. Instead of memorizing just the chords and say, okay, well, here's an A minor seventh, right? And maybe here's another A minor seventh, depending how many I know. And then maybe I have one here, seventh, sorry. I played sixth. I meant minor seventh, okay? So there's a lot of them, of course, all around the fretboard. And instead of just joining them, instead of just learning them separate, I like to think of them as steps within the neck for a certain scale. So actually, instead of minor seventh, let's pick something that's a lot easier. Let's pick maybe just C major, okay? Just C major, very simple positions. Let's do this one, which everybody knows. And we can maybe double it up here. Okay. I hope you guys can hear I have my trusty battery powered amp here, so it sounds like it sounds. But so maybe I just have these two chords. These actually three of them. I have this one, and maybe this one. You all know these chords. Okay? And we'll add one more, which is this one, which I think you all know. So basically from each root, I go down a few steps and then up a few steps, right? So from this third fret, I can go downwards and develop the chord like behind the root. And I can develop the chord above the root. And then from this root, I can develop the chord backwards. Then I can develop it forwards. Okay? And so it's a very simple chord, but here's what I like to do with them. If I only take... All right, so I don't know what happened. I think I got cut off. A lot of people are online right now. But anyway, I was saying, I'm just going to take the very simple ones. This one, and this one. And instead of just learning them like this, I will try to see them as steps on a stairwell, right? Or maybe as stones on a path, right? So from this, I would think of how to reach the other one. You see, I'm using the very simple C major scale to tie these two together, okay? I can go up, and I'm already on the next position, right? Now, if I were to go to the next one here, I can go like this. Okay, but this is a bit of jumping around because I'm only using 3, but assume you know 2 more, which are very simple. This C here, and this one. You all know this one. Now I can do these, I can follow this path with a lot more reference points. I have a lot more stones to jump from one another. So maybe I can start from this one and work my way back, and I'm already in this position. And then to this one. But I can work my way up, and I'm in this one. And then, look, I'm in this position. And then work my way up. See, so I'm using them not only to learn the chords, because I can use them as everybody else, but I'm also tying them together and using them as reference points for the fretboard. Now, if you imagine this with more complex chords and scales, it becomes very useful instead of just memorizing numbers of frets. Okay, so this is just a little something while we get the party started, and I see there's a few people logged in already. Say hello, please, and where you're from. I think some of you already wrote. Okay. How do I see these? Oh, Danielle. Hello, there's already a few of you. So I'm gonna get started with gear. We can talk about gear. I'm very sorry that I didn't schedule this hangout because I thought it was scheduled, but it wasn't. I think it just didn't work on YouTube. So glad you found me. And fire away your questions. We're gonna talk about the gear you really need, especially in today's world where you think you need everything because every 2 weeks there's something new coming out. So if you have any specific questions, we'll maybe discuss both the guitar setup, maybe for live performance, or maybe you practice, or maybe you have rehearsals. And the second one will be for home recording, so we can talk about computers and we can talk about software a little bit, and maybe the setup. You know, if you guys think you need a compressor and stuff like that, you can ask me what I use. I've used a lot of stuff, and some of it worked, some of it didn't. So feel free to ask questions, and we'll get started. Oh, by the way, I just got this. Speaking of gear, I just got this in the mail by Friedman, and I've always been curious about this because, you know, actually this is about gear. Sometimes when you play, you can't carry all your stuff with you. Like a few months ago, I was supposed to go play, you know, far away, and I wouldn't have been able to bring my amps and all my pedal board, which is not big, but still, you know, the guitar is pretty much everything I could carry. And then it got canceled because of the virus, but otherwise I was looking for something like this. Like this is a kind of a preamp pedal. So you can put this either in the effects loop, which I haven't tried yet, or in front of a clean amp, and it will give you the sound of a certain amplifier. And for live shows, if you try, you know, if you are flying, for example, it's a great solution. And I've tried it yesterday, but I only tried it with this, which is a bit strange, right? It's a bit one of the most expensive and best maybe pedals with one of the cheapest and not worse. It's a great little amp, but it's small. So let's start with maybe with recording, okay? And I assume most of you are guitar players. If not, please let me know. But okay, I need some advice about software and sounds for guitar, but I have a question about chords. Well, go ahead, ask the question about chords first, and then we'll talk about the gear. It doesn't matter. We're just hanging out, you know, as if we were all in the same room. So, and this will be up for later, but if somebody doesn't like these videos because they wander around a lot, that's fine. You know, they're not scripted. So ask away for your core question first, and then we'll talk about the gear. or ask both questions. You were crossing positions, but you were thinking about arpeggios. You can think about arpeggios, but I think in the examples, I was using scales, right? I'm actually thinking of notes. You can look at last week's video about how I look at the fretboard, but if I go from here to here to here, this is a very simple example in C. The arpeggios are kind of played already, so there are more ways to do them, but I'm kind of running out, right? Because they're all these inversions are all included in one or the other of these chords. So I'm thinking more scales at this time. So I have this C, and then maybe if I see my shapes around them, or better still, if I know my fretboard, then I can just... And here, I either have another C major position, and there's a lot of them, or I can just go to a full chord, right? I can work my way down. See, I'm kind of using the scale as a bridge. But the good thing about this, and I have to say that I at least in my own head, I invented this way of doing, not I invented, but I came up with it for myself as a way of improving my playing. And I don't know if there's a name for it, if somebody else works this way, but the way I look at it is that instead of having chords, there are self-contained entities, and then you just move from one to the next, and they're separated. What I do is I see them as part of the key, right? And since I see all my keys, I see them all across the fretboard all the time. So if I'm playing in C, I see all of it. It's very useful. It's useful to make my playing, more interesting sometimes than just going up and down scales, because you're always referring back to a chord. So you should visualize scales form while doing this. Well, you can visualize scale forms, or you can visualize your arpeggios. You can visualize the scales on one string and tie them together like this. If I have a C major and I know my chord here, these are all C majors. See, I can use these little triads to move from one string to the next. If I'm improvising on the second string, I get to a note that's part of the chord, and I can create a little arpeggio and as a bridge. So it's a stairwell. And now from this stairwell, I can hop off, from the escalator and keep playing and keep moving. And when I get to the note of another chord is C major, another inversion, this is a G, I know that I have a chord here. I got this, and if I play them on non-addition string, then I have even more, right? I can do all kinds of stuff. And so that's the idea, that's how I look at it. And this is just with C, but what if I want to go from C major to D minor, right? To different chords. I can still do it. I can go from whatever reference I have for C, but then as soon as I want to hit D minor, I can go to D minor. I can float with C major scale over all the chords, but I can also go from C to visualize any D minor triad anywhere. So now I'm on D minor in my head, and then now I'm in A minor. This is a triad. And you don't even have to hear it. I don't have to spell it out for you. I can just play over it. So now I'm hearing a C major 7th, but I don't have to go and stuff it down your throat. I don't have to do that. I can just imply it. It's just a different way of seeing the fretboard. And it's useful because we all know we should learn chords, but now you learn chords and you got two uses for them. One is to know the chords, to strum, but the other is also to connect your all the separate things we learn, playing one string, playing positions, playing cage, playing three notes per string, whatever it is, and you can kind of tie them all together with these chords. So this is the architecture. Yeah, that's part of it. It's part of how I see the fretboard. And you know what? It keeps growing because because every time I play something, not every time, I would hate to be one of those guys. Every time I play, but every time I play something in a novel way, like in a new way that I haven't played before, I do kind of fit it in the existing architecture. So I've thought about, putting out something describing the way I do the architecture of the guitar, but I'm not able to yet, because every time I pick something new up, it kind of changes a little bit. But eventually I will. And it's an interesting way of seeing the fretboard. And most importantly, I'm not a theoretician. I'm not interested in just knowing stuff for the sake of knowing it, not too much at least. So it's the good thing is very useful, and it's extremely applicable to your playing. It's not something that you have to do cerebrally. It's actually a physical thing. You can see it in your fingers. So I think it's very useful. It just has too many facets. So right now I'm not able to put it all in one spot. But for a live hangout, it could be a cool idea. So maybe the next one we could do it like that. All right. So what was your question about recording? Did you write already? Let's see. Okay, yeah, about software. Go ahead. Ask me about the whatever you have to ask me about recording or guitar sounds. See if I can help you. Keep in mind that I'm in the same boat as you are, and we all are. Okay, since I'm a composer songwriter and use guitar. Okay, I think you just deleted the message, so I'll wait for a new one. But here it is. I'm a composer songwriter and use guitar only for recording the music I write. Can you suggest me a software for amp and pedal board? So far I use Logic Amp Designer. Okay, I'm not a big expert on software for guitar, and there's one Okay, second part of the question. What do you think about it? Personally, I heard on YouTube, amplitude, guitar rig, bias, and so on. I have an idea, but what do you think about those? What do you prefer? The ones I like best are the ones by Universal Audio. I have their Fender Champ, and I have one of their Plexis, and I have an actual Plexi at my studio, a Marshall. And they're great sounding plugins. They're still plugins, but they sound really good. Now, I don't know how prominent your guitar is in your songs. So if it's a prominent instrument, you really want to get good sounds, because I know we can all fake it with some stuff, but if it becomes an important sound, then it has to have a good sound, because otherwise you have to always be hiding it in the mix. So I like the Universal Audio ones. You do pop rock, so okay, you can kind of get away probably with a few things, because clean guitars are a bit easier to fool the listener than distorted guitars. So assuming you do pop rock, it's like crunchy, cleanish kind of thing. So I think all the ones you mentioned are good. It probably comes down to price. I know Amplitude, a lot of people are happy with it, but it's a bit pricey when you sum all the packages you can buy. Bias is pretty good, and the other one you asked about is Amplitude guitar rig. Okay, guitar rig I haven't used in years, so I wouldn't be able to tell you, but I would probably go with if you want the things already done, I think Amplitude gives you all these packages that are already worked out, right? So they have the Hendrix package, I think, or a lot of, and so the specific sounds, if you're not a technician of the guitar, it might be useful to have something already given to you ready, right? So maybe they give you a high gain, whatever, and it's called Mesa, whatever it is, and then you don't have to fiddle around with it, especially if it's backing tracks. If it's rhythm tracks, you can just scroll through the presets and okay, this is good, and use that. So maybe I would say Amplitude, but I don't know what you get for free and what you have to pay for. Now, if you have a Universal Audio plugin, Universal Audio interface, I would suggest using, the Universal Audio plugins are great. And I think they're made in conjunction with Softube or Brainworks, one of the two. I think it's Softube and Brainworks. I don't know how it works, but those two are really good. And so I would check them out as well. They have some great Marshalls, and they have some great bass amp simulators. And I've used those. You use an old Focusrite. Okay, well, I think you can still look into the Brainworks Softube. I'm not sure which one is which, but those have Softube. I know makes them, but I think Brainworks also has them. They're not very expensive, and they have sales all the time. And I try not to buy plugins, a lot of them, because I already have quite a few. But I know that there's a page called Plugin Alliance. I think it's called Plugin Alliance, and they have sales all the time, and you can get these great plugins for cheap. Just you wait, and you get a discount. And then sometimes I bought a plugin for $300, which I used a lot on my last record, so I don't mind it. It was the SSL console, and it was on sale for $39 like a few months later. So if you just wait, check out the Plugin Alliance page. And I'm not affiliated with them at all, nothing, but it just as a bit of advice from me to you. Go to Plugin Alliance, wait for their sales and their coupons, and you can get some great sounding amps for cheap. So maybe that's what I would do. So about Logic amp, you think it's not really good? Well, I don't know. I don't use Logic, but I use GarageBand, and I think it's the worst of the ones that I tried on my iPad. I used Bias. I had the Bias one. I use the internal GarageBand ones. I use them a lot. As a matter of fact, there's a song called City Lights on Lights and Shadows, which was written exclusively with those. And then of course I had to, redo the guitars. But it's good. It's good. But for actual production, I wouldn't use them. No, unless it's a strange sound you're going after, But I would check out those Brainworks ones. If you don't mind spending a little bit more and not worrying about it because you have everything in one place, then probably Amplitude. Amplitude before Bias? I don't know. Maybe. Yes, I would probably go with Amplitude. Yeah, I don't know your budget, but otherwise you could go with. Check it out. Yeah, do that. Check out the Plugin Alliance thing. Let me know how it goes. Otherwise, you could go with something which nowadays I think some of them are pretty cheap. Those pedal boards. Some of them are from Helix, the Line 6 one. Some of them are from the guys at AxeFX. Those are a bit pricey, I think. But there's also some Chinese companies. Remember the ones they made clones of famous pedals, and now they're making clones of the amp simulators. And there's a few of them that are pretty cheap, and maybe that would be an option, because then you don't have to do it with software. So if one day you need to get the stuff out of your studio, of your house, if all you have for guitar is inside the computer, and I see that a lot, it's a big problem for people. If everything you do is inside the computer, you're tied to the room, right? Unless you want to move everything all the time. And I see with the keyboard sounds also, I like my hardware synths because I don't like having everything in the computer because I like to sometimes just plug it in and play, or maybe I have to move it somewhere. If I'm recording an album or a song in a studio, I want to be able to bring my hardware, and plug it in. So that's my advice. Maybe check that out. I bought the Palmer DI, an amp simulator. Oh, you did? Yeah, the PGA 04. Well, that's a great tool, but you need. I was going to talk about that if more people have questions about recording guitars, because you can use a tube amp in your house. There are ways, and the one you talk about is the Palmer Speaker Simulator. Is the one I use for all of Lights and Shadow. All of Power Fantastic was recorded with just that thing and an angle that I had. And the angle is extremely loud. It's 120 watts, but dead silent because it was plugged into the Palmer Speaker Simulator. And everything was recorded probably every night. I would do from 12 midnight to 5 or 6 in the morning. Nobody knew because I was plugged into the Palmer. So, but since then, this was like 12 years ago, and now there's a lot of options, and I can talk about that if you guys want. Some of them are a bit pricey, but if you are mainly guitar players, then I would get into it because it probably is worth your investment, instead of worrying about software, because I think software is not that great. But the intermediate point would be your pedal board, as I said, like the small AxeFX or Helix, or this one that's called Hot Tone or Hot One. I don't know what it's called. Some Asian companies make some cheaper ones. Moer, I think it's called. I haven't heard it, but they're similar. The Palmer Pocket Amp is fine. I don't think it will get you very far as your only tool in the studio for recording guitars. I love I have it. It's a nice little thing, but maybe I wouldn't use it for recording an album. It's more of a practice thing. But the next step up from these pedal boards would be their big brothers. It would be the Kemper and the XFX, and then the Line 6, the Helix, the actual Pro version. And I have a Kemper, and I've used it extensively, and it saved my ass many times live because I had a Marshall that had a problem that kept blowing fuses, and he always did it after sound check. So we would go and do sound check, everything was perfect, plug it in for the show, and the amp blew up. And so the Kemper has saved me many times, and it sounds great. It's an incredible tool, but if you're a purist and you enjoy tube amps, we'll get into the other option if you guys want. Okay. But it's a bit pricey. Okay, so you wanted to buy software, but how much money? What? How much money? The other stuff? Well, the other stuff is basically, I'll get into it. The other stuff is if assuming you already have one or more Kemper, pod, etc. A lot of money, right? Yeah. Well, Kempers are expensive, and XFX is expensive, and the truth is that they get better every time, right? So, well, the Kemper, the good thing is there's only one. There's a pedal board, but they've only released. It's only based on one actual product, but the XFX has gone through many iterations. It started from whatever it was called, the first one, XFX, I guess, and then it went all the way to the 3, I think they're at now. And so it does get better. So you're always one step behind. If you have a good amp, that's your amp, and it's never gonna get worse, or better. If you like a JCM 800, that's it. You got the JCM 800. But the idea is, this is what I do for most of my guitars. I have quite a few amps, but you don't need to have that many. You can have one or two. If you have one amp even that you really enjoy, then I would probably go with the option of using software, cheap software, only when I need something different. But then I can use my favorite amp with my own settings and buy something like a Palmer speaker simulator, or something else that now they've been coming out with more advanced things. I use the Universal Audio aux, and it's an incredible box, and you plug your amp into it, the power amp, right? So you use your amp head as always, or if you have a combo, you just disconnect the speaker and plug it into the aux. And inside the aux, there are simulations of a lot of cabinets with a lot of speakers, with a lot of microphones in a room, and it sounds incredible. It sounds incredible. It sounds great. It sounds so great that I have the facility to, I can actually record my own guitars with microphones. I've done it thousands of times. And sometimes I cannot get as good a result with my own microphones in a real room with a real cabinet than with the Universal Audio. Not just easy to use, but actually better sounding. So I've been using that extensively. There are cheaper versions. So the Palmer is a cheaper version. It only has one sound, more or less. You can tweak it. Then there's the SPL transducer, which for what it's worth, I would move up to the aux. Then Boss came out with one, which I haven't tried, but I heard good things about it. And it's cheaper, like quite cheaper than the aux, which is about 12 or I think $200 or euros, something like that. And then there's the Torpedo one, which I haven't used either, but I've heard in a studio, and it sounds quite impressive. But I still like the aux better. But I'm more into classic amps and speakers and the classic way of recording, whereas I think the Torpedo is more. There's a lot of modern players, like real heavy stuff, and they use that a lot. But of course, that might be limiting on my part. I think it does pretty much everything. But I really enjoy the UAD aux. Now, it is expensive, but if, say, you already have two amplifiers, maybe you like a lot, then it wouldn't make sense to waste these two amps and then go out and buy a Kemper, maybe, because you could just buy for less money the aux and be able to use your own amps. What are these? DI or audio interface? No, this is just these are just boxes like the Palmer you have. They're just direct boxes, but no, they're not direct boxes. They are load boxes. So your amp needs to see a load, otherwise you blow your cabinet, your head. And so you plug it into these, and these absorb the power, but at the same time take the signal and give you the equivalent of having a cabinet with a microphone. And but if you don't have an amp, I wouldn't worry about it, because then you have to go out and buy an amp and buy that. And also, the more amplifiers you have, the more useful the aux, because you can take advantage of it with a lot of amps that you already have, right? If I have to go out and buy 10 amplifiers and the aux, then I will have to sell my house. But if I already have a few amps that I bought here and there, then I think it makes a lot of sense. So I'm a big proponent of the aux, and again, I'm not affiliated to Universal Audio, so I would love to use the aux. Hello, Alex. It sounds awesome, by the way. My amp head, TubeMeister Deluxe. Oh, I know that one. Yeah. Okay, you can plug it in directly. Yeah, so yeah, that is true. Some amplifiers come with a simulated output. That's what it's called, right? A microphone simulation or whatever, a speaker simulated output, and it's what it is. So it's an output before your power amp, and it has filters on them to simulate, because when you plug in, if you could hear the sound of an amp head, it sounds very trebly and fizzy, because the actual speaker cabinets of your amp filter out a lot of highs. So basically that's what these simulations do. But there's ways to do it that are more profound, than others. And the one going direct, I have a few of some Marshalls, but I'm not a big fan of them. Although if you listen to Feel the Sky, the album, there's 2 or 3 solos that were recorded directly from a JVM, the one I used at the time. And so, it's good enough. But, the problem with these guitar things is that you can get away with one track that's not maybe great, but when you start adding one on top of the other, then it gets, it becomes evident, or it becomes strange, I had a post on Instagram because I fixed a lot of my Rockman modules, the old Tom Scholz. I posted it on Facebook and Instagram, and I had a bunch of modules, and I had to fix them and refurbish them, and they sound great in a way, but you couldn't make a record with them, But on Lights and Shadows, the first song on the Lights and Shadows album, the solo is all done with one of these Rockmans, and it sounds good. It works. But if I were to record the whole song with the Rockmans, then nobody would listen to it probably nowadays, and I wouldn't. And so, the risk with going with something that doesn't sound really good, and maybe only gets to 80% of a good sound, is that when you go 80, if you have 100% twice, it's still 100%, but 80 and 80, it gets smaller all the time. And so the quality goes down, and that happens with everything. Like plugins, you listen to a compressor as a plugin, and you compare a cheap one you get for free, which sometimes are good, but an 1176 simulation, and then you listen to the actual Universal Audio plugin or hardware, and you go like, well, it's a bit of a difference, but it's not that big. But if you apply an 1176 to, I don't know, like 14 guitars, then, or to the snare and the vocals and the bass, then it sums up, and that's where people get lost sometimes, and they settle for something that's not as good, thinking only of that instance, but it becomes multiplied and amplified. So going back to Daniel, which I think wrote something, you don't have nothing, okay, only guitar and interface. Well, then, if guitar is not your main thing, I would suggest either a small pedal board, with amp simulations, and maybe like a Helix or something like that. If you don't want to spend a lot of money, look into the ones that are made in Asia. Or I would check out those plugins I told you, and wait for them to be on sale and get started with that. And that's fine. It's fine. You'll be fine. And nobody really cares too much, because as long as your songs are good, that's what we care about. We don't. I had some songs that sound like shit, because it was a choice of either making them, recording them, or not making an album or not making it, and it's fine. Few people complain about the sound of anything, right? Because we listen to music. So, Alex, the problem with tube amps and load boxes is summer, so damn hot. It is true. It's true. They get hot, but it's fine. It's good hot. Yeah, so the using Kettner, the thing you have is only a filter, right? Which is fine, but again, this filter is a stable filter, right? I mean, it's fixed. So every time you record your guitar, it will go through the same filter. And you produce your music, so you know what that means. You get a sum of all these things, and then it becomes a problem. Even with great gear, I remember. Excuse me. I remember. I don't know if I read it or I was discussing it with John Cuniverdi, who masters all my records, and he was like, "Well, you gotta be careful putting everything through a great preamp, like a 1073. 1073 is the Neve preamps. Some of them go for like thousands of dollars, and they're great. But you have to be careful if you put everything through them, because it would just get this bump in certain frequencies that are part of the Neve DNA. So that's why people sometimes mix them, right? Maybe they do the drums through the Neves and the guitars through the APIs and the vocals through whatever. And it is true of very expensive gear and very good gear. So it is even more true with cheaper gear and lower quality, because it gets amplified as you get more tracks going. Okay, I hope it makes sense. Thank you, Danielle, no problem. And then between 100 and 200, I would try Mercurial Audio or Neural DSP plugins. They all have trial mode. All right, well, there you go. See, a lot of people know more about this stuff than I do. So there you go. Listen to Alex. He knows his stuff. He knows it. Do you know everything about guitars? I think so. I think there's pretty much nothing. I'm looking into Torpedo Cab and things like that to try RS. Okay. Well, how many amps do you have, Alex? Only the Tubemeister? Because if you have more amps, I love the aux. I love the aux. I can't get over how good it sounds. Okay, about the technique of duplicating the guitar track and apply different amplifier and effects on each. I suppose you mean, yeah, okay. That's a good question. And we all have our techniques, and sometimes our techniques come from our limitations. So when I started recording, I had no idea what I was doing, and then I went from there. But oh, you have a Deluxe 20? Okay. Okay, cool. I'm looking at the 65 Deluxe. I'm thinking about it. I have the Fender Vaporizer, but it's not actually it's a real Fender, but it doesn't have the classic Fender sound. So I'm thinking of getting a Deluxe. But anyway, Danielle, yeah, the multiple guitar things. Well, think of it. You always have to think of why you're doing what you're doing. That's the biggest thing that you can get when you produce music. Because I did the other way, which was, oh, a knob, let me tweak it, and oh, a button, I have to push it, and I kind of get away with it with Power of Fantastic, but it wasn't easy, and it was just luck, and you can only be lucky once. So it's really important before you touch anything to think, why do I want to do it? So why do you want to have more guitars at the same time, right? Maybe it's because you have a guitar here. You have a rhythm guitar and a lead guitar, and this is the most basic. If you listen to the first Black Sabbath record, rhythm guitars, lead guitar, right? That's, I think, might be where that started with distorted guitars. But if you have a lead guitar or a vocal and you have one guitar only and there's no keyboard or anything, sometimes you don't want that asymmetry there. You want to have your whole field covered. So you might say, okay, well, let me put another guitar on this side, right? So if you put the same exact, if you were to just copy, and I've seen people do it, they take one guitar and they make a copy, they duplicate the actual track and they put it on the other side, all you get is the same track in the middle, just a bit louder, all right? So doesn't work. What you might want to do is say, okay, well, let me use the same sound, same guitar, same amp, but let me play again, same thing, but just by the way we humans are not 100% accurate. And so the effect of this will give you enough difference between the two channels to hear the guitar like one guitar, but that covers the whole stereo field. Now that opens up the guitar sound, the rhythm guitar, and leaves room in the middle for your melody, right? That's a simple explanation. There's one problem with it. If you practiced a lot your first part, then when you double it, if you play too close to it, it will almost be as when you duplicate the track. It happened to me on Answers on the latest record on Mystic Electric. There's a little riff that goes like this, if I can remember it. It goes like this. And I played it so much because I couldn't play it. And I practiced it so much that when I went to record the double tracking and I listened back to it, it was all out of phase because it was so exact. So if you don't practice it too much, it works. And then you have slightly different takes, and the little differences in the takes will spread out the sound. Okay, that's one option. Sometimes you want to have more guitars, one on top of the other, so not spread out, but actually one over the other, to fill out certain frequencies. For example, if one track has a lot of distortion, like okay, so this amp is a bit limited, but if I have a lot of distortion like this, and maybe bassy, right? I'm gonna make it as bassy as possible. Right, this gives that weight. It has this big weight, but it also has a lot of distortion, overdrive, compression. And you say, wow, when I put all the instruments in, the guitar gets buried, because it doesn't have any peaks, it doesn't have any spikes to come, so that it overcomes the rhythm track. So what you can do is change drastically the sound and think about what you want to hear. What you want to hear is whatever frequencies I have covered by my first track, I'm going to find the ones that I need to fill it up. So if this is very bassy, I might do a track with a cleaner sound, maybe a little crunchy, and slightly more trebly. So you see how you can hear the percussive aspect of this. Now, if you put it right underneath the other, you have the perception of one sound only, but it has two different colors in one. Okay? So these are basically the two main things, and then you can get into a lot of trouble when using the wah-wah pedal, where you have all the sweeps and choruses, all that kind of stuff. It's pretty bad. But hopefully this helps. Someone do this only for changing the sound of that one track of guitar. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if I get you. Yeah, but usually it's for spread or for that. But anyway, going back to your okay, great. Going back to the guitar chain to record, one thing that I think is very important, and I noticed, is good converters. And good converters nowadays are a lot easier to find. A lot of audio interfaces have decent converters, but it was a huge difference for me when I moved from, I don't know what it was, an M-Box or something, or a Digio 2 I think I had. It's an old interface by DigiDesign, when Pro Tools were made by DigiDesign. And I upgraded to an RME interface before I moved to the Universal Audio stuff. And I swear, as soon as I recorded a guitar, one track, I couldn't believe the difference between the Digio 2 and the RME. And it wasn't just the preamps, it was just the conversion from digital to analog. And that's something that sometimes people miss. They buy these cheaper interfaces, and it's true that they work, but I found a huge difference in sound with the conversion from digital to analog. So when you buy a cheaper one, maybe make sure you go through all the reviews and try to get as much information as possible to see. Even better than a preamp, I would say the conversion is the most important thing, because preamps can be bypassed, right? You can plug in, you can always upgrade those. You can always buy one great preamp and you'll be fine. But conversion is key. So a good converter is very important, extremely important. And usually they come along with good interfaces. So for example, I really like the Universal Audio converters, which some people, really lofty engineers sometimes complain about, but I like them a lot, and they're available on all of their interfaces. Is that why no one uses the Digio 2 anymore? Yeah, I don't think anybody does, but I had one, and yeah, it was not. You know, the funny thing is the DGO2 was considered a very decent interface. It was actually a respected interface, but when I moved on from it, it was incredible the difference. So true. That is probably why plugins doesn't sound the same using my Scarlett versus Universal Audio. Yeah, well, I heard good thing about the Scarlett, but some, you know, the thing is, all these cheaper interfaces, they usually focus the marketing on the preamps, right? They tell you what kind of preamps they have, if they're made by this guy or that guy. But I find that the conversion is so important, so important. And you don't have to go overboard. You don't have to spend 8,000 euros on a converter, but really try to find a good interface. And that's why I think you should buy fewer things but of really high quality. Not expensive, but high quality. You can find expensive stuff that's high quality, but you can also find cheaper things that are high quality. Like some great guitar amplifiers are not that expensive. But smaller ones, I know there's new SSL interfaces. I was talking to a friend who needed something. He asked me, and I told him to check them out. And they're supposed to have very decent converters, and they're only like 200 or 300 euros, I think. And so that's what I would do. I would focus on, for recording, I would focus on strictly on the interface about the converters, and then I would try to get one good preamp, at least one. If you are in the simulated world like UAD or maybe some other brands, then you buy these plugins. Otherwise, you actually buy the preamp, and there are some clones that are very good and they're not that expensive. And as far as the guitars, now we should talk about the guitars, because as some of you know, I'm an artist for Parker guitars, and they're known, or they were known. Now they don't exist anymore because I sync them. Parker guitars are famous for being very expensive and very high quality, but also very expensive. But you don't need to go that high. But I have some guitars that are quite inexpensive, and I made them fit my playing so well that, you know, it's very important to have at least one guitar. I need more for instrumental music, but one or two instruments that you're really, really happy with, because that's where it all starts. Not just the sound, but you actually being comfortable with the guitar. I have, as an example, I have an Epiphone Dot, which is the cheapest 335 style guitar they make. 300 euros, no more than that. I think it was 300. And the Dot cost me 300 euros, and then I spent 200 to put some great pickups in it. And when I don't do the modern stuff like the Parkers let me do, when I need something different, that's the guitar I go to 90% of the time. And it's an incredible guitar. It cost me total 500 euros, which is not that much. And once I have that in my chain, then I go like, okay, what's next, right? A good cable, okay, that's fine. And then a good amp you want, or in your case, it could be a simulator, but you know, get something maybe that doesn't do as much, but get a really good one. It doesn't have to be expensive, but make sure it's the best possible thing you can get. Right? If it's a simulator and you don't have money for a Kemper, maybe wait to get a Kemper if you think the Kemper is what fits your needs. And if you don't have money right now for a Helix, if you think that's what works for you, then you can wait. The worst thing is to keep buying cheaper stuff, because it might benefit you today, but eventually, I've seen it with myself and I've seen it with so many people, it's frustrating. You know, you fill your studio up with shit that you don't need. So I hope that helps. But from then on, of course, converters, and then software, use whatever. I actually think that's where you can kind of save money, because I use Pro Tools, but I have, you know, I won't get into it, but if I had to, you know, get all my software, I love Pro Tools, but if I couldn't afford Pro Tools, nowadays there's so much stuff that you can get, right? Studio One is relatively cheap, relatively. You have Reaper, which is, I don't know if it's nothing or almost. You've got Cubase, I think is a lot cheaper than other software. You got Universal Audio giving away a DAW, Luna, for free now with their interfaces. So that's what I would kind of save, you know, and I would try all of them. And I would just save money on the software, because you can work around the software. If you have to hit the mouse twice instead of once, it doesn't matter, but you cannot make a guitar sound better. right? So I wouldn't never skip the actual hardware. The hardware has to be the best possible you can get. And if you don't have money for it right now, which happens to all of us, just wait and get the right one. If you sing, Danielle, from what you say, it seems that guitar is only a secondary thing. So I assume you make music that has voice. Well, you need to get a good microphone for your voice. You must get the best possible microphone. It doesn't have to be the $10,000 ones, but if it has to be a $1,500 one, then that's what it has to be, because nothing else will work when you have 10 vocal tracks, all of them with a slight misalignment with your voice. You know, it's very important to get good stuff, and I can't stress it enough. Start somewhere, get the first thing, get it right, then move on. That's my advice. Wait, I think there's more questions. Universal Audio plus Apollo plus aux plus a couple of good amp heads equal heaven. That is true. That's what I'm trying to do. It is true. Although real heaven is being in front of a Marshall at 110 dBs. You see a DJ1, I see a DJ1 on eBay for $39. For recording a live band, would something be better? Yeah, a lot of things would be better. But for recording a live band, you know what I would like to do? I would like to get one of those multi-track digital recorders. I know Tascam has one, which is like a mixer with a built-in recorder. And for playing, that's what I would do. When I rehearse with my band, I can now, but when we rehearse, I actually record everything on this phone with this very microphone. It's a stereo microphone. Put it in the middle of the room and record it. Because I think messing with a computer when you rehearse, it's a big no-no for me. So I wouldn't worry about the DJ1 or nothing. I would just record straight to somewhere with a good stereo microphone, or record with a little mixer. That's what I would do. Because it's really hard to then massage these rehearsals into an actual record. If you want to get into that, then you will need a lot of inputs. You know, if you want to record and then make a record. So I would just focus on making it as easy as possible. Hit a button and record. I actually recorded my rehearsal sometimes on an 8-track Tascam, like a cassette one. Danielle, do you ever have problems in my neck head for the position of guitar while studying or playing too much? Yeah, you can I can resolve it with a bit of gym. Yeah, you should do sports. I'm into martial arts. I have been for 20 years, 15, I don't know, a long time. And so, I keep myself, I kind of keep myself nimble. But yeah, also the way you play is important. So I always play or try to play with a straight back. Try not to look down at the guitar. You can just kind of, look at it from here. You don't have to be right there with your brain on the fret. That's one thing. Try to play standing up sometimes. What I do is sometimes I play walking around, which looks weird, but it really helps when you play live, because otherwise live is like either I play or I move. Should I play or should I move? And then if you don't move, you feel bad because people are watching you and you're like, should I be moving? And so I kind of practice that, but mainly it's for breaking up the positions. And also I try to do a little bit of activity in between. Like for example, if I play 3 hours, then I get up, maybe do a half hour of gym or something, then train a little bit, stuff like that. But yeah, make sure your position, if you play like this, then and you see this, if your back is down and your neck is up, this is bad. This compression here in the back of the head, of the neck, that's bad. So you always want to try to be straight, right? So play like this maybe. And then crossing your legs like I do sometimes, it's okay, but not for very long periods of time. So usually you can maybe play like this, maybe even put your foot on a stool and play. Okay, but try not to do this with your back, right? Because it hits your back, your lower back will hurt, but you will also get problems in your neck because you have to compensate, right? So it's better to just stand straight and then keep your neck straight like that. Yeah, that's what I would do. And also careful with this, right? When you play, everything but your wrists shouldn't be doing anything. So I never do this, never lift my elbow, because then I'm loading my shoulder. I'm always playing with a minimum amount of effort. If something is hard, I still don't do it. I work it out, but I never do this because this will load your shoulder really quick, and then it's connected to this here, and then it will get to your neck. So I've noticed that in quite a few people, and I've been trying to correct it. But Alex, it's been almost 15 years since I played in front of a cranked amp. So sad. Inspiration is not the same playing at home. That is true. And we're talking about it in one of these videos, how tube amps, and that's why going back to what Danielle was asking about the what should I use, a plugin or something, I always suggest that people should have at least one tube amp. And if you can't have it, you should rent a room, rehearsal space, maybe 1 hour every week for a while, and play through a real true tube amp, because it's really part of the equation of the guitar. And I enjoy all the other stuff. I have my Kemper and I use my Rockmans, and I use plugins, I use everything, but I always have the reference point of how the guitar is actually not meant to be played you have to do it, but meant to be played as a design. The design of the guitar goes hand in hand with the design of the amplifier. And hearing the sound actually live in the room, not just with headphones between your ears, but actually feeling the air moving. I find it extremely useful when you play for people. If you play live and you're used to being in this closed space where your guitar sits right there in the middle of your brain, and it's an inside thing, it's always on the inside. When you go play in front of people, it's really hard to relate to them because you're so used to having it coming from within. But when you're used to playing with in a loud, not loud, that's bad for your ears, but with actual air moving, it's and mechanically, it doesn't come from a plugin, it's actually a mechanical thing that you're interacting with. It's really helpful when it comes time to engage audiences, because you're aware that it's the same space you're sharing. I don't know, it's hard to explain, but it is really true. So I would suggest, if you can't have an amp, Danielle or whoever, at home, the next best thing is a load box. Then you can use the amp at least. But otherwise is to just go to a rehearsal space, find some friends, or even go by yourself and play through an amp. Just don't play too loud because it's bad for your ears. So always wear headphones, earplugs if you need it. Sounds stupid question, but wrong position caused me a lot of problems. Okay, yeah. No, it's not a stupid question at all. It's a great question, because sometimes we focus so much on the fingers that we forget about the rest. But yeah, just sit straight. This fixes a lot of problems. Then you can do exercises, maybe stretch, and you can also do exercises for your lower back. You lay on the floor and raise your head. Like, here's your head, right? This is your butt. This is your feet, and you raise the head like this. Okay, so this will strengthen your lower back, and it's really useful. You can do push-ups, right, for this area here in the back and the front when you go up. That's also very useful. And then you can do exercise that's more stretchy, right? So yoga, I think, or Tai Chi or something. If you're not into high impact things, you can do lighter things that kind of connect the whole body. And if you do that, then it's easier to, when you play the guitar, not just play with the fingers, but be conscious of the whole position. So as always, I come up with a title for the Hangout, and then we don't really talk about that, which is great. I think it might piss people off when they find this Hangout later, and they go like, well, they haven't talked about what I need, what gear I need. So if you have any more questions about that, just to keep them happy, oh, by the way, when we're talking about effects for plugins, then I'm a bit more forgiving. Like, to me, I have a lot of delays. I have hardware and I have software, and I have my favorites, but really it's not that big of a deal if I use one delay or the other. Maybe even reverb is not that big of a deal. I see a lot of great producers using Deverb, which is the free Pro Tools one, and with those I'm more forgiving. But I wouldn't let go if we're talking about the actual physical instruments. I would get the best instrument you can get, not the most expensive again, just the best for you. And then there's one more thing, which sometimes I complain about YouTube, like you think you always need to know everything and you need to buy everything. And that's true because you don't need to buy everything. But sometimes buying gear inspires you to actually play more or better. And so it's hard for me to say don't buy stuff because like the piano behind me, like 8 months ago, I decided I was going to learn to play the piano and I invested in a pretty expensive, it's a digital piano, but it's a really good one. And because of that, I think I've been playing 2 or 3 hours every day. And maybe if I, well, of course, if I hadn't bought no piano at all, then I wouldn't have. But if I had bought something that didn't inspire me and didn't feel, it didn't make me feel invested, not only money wise, but actually I said, well, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. And just the fact of buying something good or buying something that I knew would inspire me made me actually do it. And so it might be a bit more pricey than another one, but when you divide the amount of hours I spent on it and then I will spend through the years, then that's another way of looking at it. So if a Kemper is very expensive or a Marshall, maybe it's expensive if you look at it as an expense today, but try to divide the price by all the hours you're going to spend with it. And that's how I look at it. And look at my studio. So maybe don't follow my advice. Yes, this happens to me too. Yeah, it is true. It is true. Some gear is inspiring. And it can be a little pedal, you know. Sometimes you buy a small pedal and you plug it in and it's like, wow, look, a new song, you know. So I'm not against buying stuff, you know, or getting it on loan, although then I never return it. But yeah, so as always, you know, I don't worry about these videos going all over the place topic wise because I'm not trying to do anything with this video. We're just hanging out. But if you do want me to stick to the topic, then I will try to. Let me know in the comments. Otherwise, we'll keep going like this. You know, next time maybe we'll talk a little bit about something. I don't know. Maybe we'll just do a free one, right? You can ask whatever you want. But if you have any more questions, I'm happy to stay a little longer. Otherwise, we'll keep it at around 1 hour. Come on, we talked a bit about gear. It is true. It is true. We did talk about gear. I just would hate for people to come in and say, okay, he's going to answer all my questions. What do I really need? So maybe I just change the title. I will just call it gear and stuff. Or I don't know. But your amp and pedal of choice is stuck on an island for 10 years. Maybe 2 pedals. Well, that's a good question. Let's see. Who is this? Indrajit Boga. I'm sure I mispronounced your name, and I'm sorry. My favorite, your amp and pedal of choice is stuck on an island. It has to be a Marshall. It has to be a Marshall. And it would be very hard not to say my Plexi 1987X. And 2 pedals, that's easy. A wah-wah pedal and a delay pedal, because I can't live without them. So as long as my amp has good distortion, wah-wah and the delay, that's no question at all. And the wah-wah is usually my 535Q, I think it's called, the Dunlop one with the selectable Q and sweep. And the delay, probably my Boss DD2 from 1984, I think. That's the one I like the most. That's easy. The amp is a bit harder, but it's, yeah, that's probably my Plexi or any Marshall. Any Marshall will do. I love Marshalls. Have you seen the Digitech Freakout? You know what? I heard about it. What is it? Oh, cool and inspiring pedal. Check out Mika Tiska demo. Okay, I will. Freakout. Digitech Freakout. Okay. And Alex, yours is the JCM 800. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. Maybe I could go with the 800. But then I would need a distortion pedal because for some things the 800 is almost there, but it needs a little bit. So maybe it would need a bit of an OD in front of it. So maybe I would just stick to the Plexi. I don't know. Or my JVM. You know, if I only had one amp, maybe the JVM. Because maybe it doesn't sound quite as great as the Plexi, but it has a lot of channels. So maybe the JVM. Yeah, or maybe a Friedman, because I'm enjoying this pedal a lot, and I can only imagine what the actual amp sounds like. I don't know. How about you, man? You asked the question, so now you have to give us your answer, right? Indrajit. No, I'm not gonna say your name again. I'm sorry, but because I don't want to offend you. But what's your amp for Desert Island? But when you say tube amp, it's a particular type of amp. No, it's just the structure of the amp. It's not solid state. It's made of, with the valves, with tubes. It's just the way the power is generated inside the amp and distributed then to the output. And also the preamp, it has tubes. Yeah. So think of Fenders, Marshalls, the not cheap, yeah, but they are cheaper. Not the consumer, but the more pro things. But you can find them really cheap. There's tube amps for every price now. There's tube amps in the tour. Like I have a Laney Cub 10, which is a small, like an old Fenderish kind of simple circuit. It's a great amp, incredible amp. If you change the speaker, it's a great amp, but it's like 200 and something. So no reason not to, really. It's really something when it comes to dynamics, the way you play, the way the amp responds. Just the tube amps are just the perfect thing with the guitar, and you can work with everything else, but it's really useful to get to know them. Okay, it's something like a feedback generator. Okay, I'll check it out, Alex. So Indrajit, we're waiting for your favorite amp and pedals. Don't leave me hanging, because we gave you ours. Now you have to tell us. Oh, here you go. I go for any modeling amp and maybe a headless guitar like your and a wah pedal. That's good. Wah pedals are the shit. You need a wah pedal. And then a modeling amp. Okay, that's interesting. Cool. This guitar, well, yeah, this guitar is only my travel guitar because I can't go to the studio because I'm stuck at home. This is what I use at home to practice a little bit, and I take it with me traveling. But it's not maybe the greatest guitar in the world, but I know what you mean, right? There's a, what's the name of the company now that's quite famous? Steinberg, something. And of course, these are the Steinberger ones. But yeah, they're interesting. They're a bit small for me though, because I'm quite tall. So if I were to play on stage with this, you barely see me. I mean, you better see the guitar. You'd be like, what's he doing? But yeah, for guitar, I would probably take my Parker with me, my Solar Flare one. That's the one I use the most, because again, it does one thing very well and then a lot of other things quite well. So that's what I would take for guitar. Friedman amps are, let's say, expensive. Yeah, they're expensive. I think they're great amps, but very defined, I think, sound-wise. So you really have to be sure that's your sound. But yeah, I think, what is it? The B800 is about 4,000, something like that. But then again, I have some gear that's expensive. And oh, by the way, about gear you need, I would say invest in either a good set of speakers or headphones. But I would go with good speakers. You want to learn how to produce music in your own studio, you need to know what you're listening to. So that's one place where you should spend a bit of money, with good speakers for your studio. And also spend just a little bit of money, but more than money, spend time learning how to condition your room. It doesn't have to be a pro job, but condition your room so you're not actually listening to the room so much more than the speakers. And you can learn how to do it, and there's a lot of things you can do on your own quite cheaply. You can go to the hardware store and buy stuff that will do it for you. I mean, they will fix it, and then you have to get your hands dirty and do it and build it. But it's very important to get good monitors and a good listening environment. Very important. Now you say, well, there are people who make great records with their headphones sitting on the beach. Okay, but for the 99.99999% of the rest of us, it still applies that you have to be able to listen to what you're doing. And good monitors, they don't have to be extremely good or extremely expensive, but they have to be good enough, and you have to spend enough hours with them that you can know what they sound like and being able to compensate for their sound and your room sound and make music that will translate outside of your studio. So it's not really that important that they're great. They have to be good enough, and you have to spend a lot of hours with them. So you can maybe save a little bit of money with them, but you must know them. And to know them, you have to have a room that allows you to listen, to hear them. And so it's very important you condition your room. It's extremely important. And again, well, but this guy makes Vangelis had a studio made of glass in his Paris house, but that's not a good example, right? You want to go to the most common thing, and the most common thing is a nice, decent sized room with enough treatment that you can hear the speakers. Raymond has been waiting for over 20 years for my Dunlop wah to break so I can justify buying a box. Okay, well, then maybe after 20 years, maybe you should. Maybe it's enough justification that you hang on to it for 20 years. Or maybe just keep the Dunlop. And Danielle, listening on monitors is a lot better than headphones. I can't use headphones for more than 30 minutes. Yeah, monitors are where it's at. And headphones you can use to check stuff, but it's really important. So between great headphones and great and decent monitors, I will go with decent monitors. And then when you have extra cash, get some very nice headphones. Most home rooms are dreadful for mixing. Acoustic treatment is so important. That's true. Treatment, but also picking the right room. If you have that luxury at home to be able to go, well, I'm gonna keep this one. Or if you are even more fortunate, then you can build one, right? But otherwise, pick the right room, and something as simple as choosing the right place where to sit. And if you have, a window, which side should it be facing? Of course, this doesn't apply here. I'm at my house, but in the studio, I will be able to show you how I set it up. And where you're sitting and how far from the wall and what actual direction you're facing, in the long direction, not the shortest. But then if the room has a strange shape, you might want to face the shorter one. You really have to read up on it. We can talk about it again on one of these videos, but it's important to have a grasp on it. And if you don't want to spend a lot of money on the equipment to treat the room, like Oralex and all this stuff, which are very easy to obtain, you can build your own stuff, and you can build it for cheap. You just have to buy some right material for it and then make it prettier. But it's extremely important. Extremely. 100% agree with you. Okay. Do you guys have any more questions or any more comments? Otherwise, maybe we've been on for about an hour, a little more. So if you have any ideas for the next videos, please go ahead and leave comments down here, or maybe even on Facebook, Instagram, whatever. I spent hours and hours learning about that. So important. It is true, Alex. Extremely important. It's very important. And the thing is, you can read about it, but you have to do it. And so you should get going as quickly as possible. If you have a small studio at home, just start treating it. Read as much as you can, but then apply it as quickly as possible, and then you'll know when things work and when they don't. Even if you think you don't, you go like, well, I'm lost. I don't even know what good sounds like, but you will be able to get it. You just have to do it. And also, if you can, try to visit studios. There's many excuses you can make to visit a studio, but otherwise, just go with some friend who's recording there. And I've been in studios since almost the first day I started to play the guitar. And that's been extremely helpful, because even though I didn't know exactly what I was looking for, it all stays here. And so now when I go to studios, I can focus on very specific things, like, well, let me sit in this spot and do this, and I know what my studio sounds like, and but try to visit studios. Just go and talk to them, or go with a band who has a friend of yours playing in it, and they're recording a demo somewhere. Go and sit in and just listen to it. It's you'll get an idea of what a good room sounds like. So that's another little piece of advice. All right. So Yeah, a bit of a strange hangout today, topic-wise, but maybe we'll get back to guitar. I haven't played any songs for you guys today, sorry, but I will get back to it maybe next time. And I'm gonna wait a few seconds for any last-minute questions. Otherwise, maybe we'll leave it for today. Let's see. Okay. Yeah. So if you have any ideas for the next one, I'll be back on Thursday again. That's almost 100% sure. And then we'll see when the quarantine is over. We'll see. I have a lot of birds on my balcony here. It's really cool. For next time, maybe something else about CD promotion, or even some example of a song on how to use 2 or 3 guitar tracks together. Some lead improv stuff would be amazing. Actually, you can check out last week's video. There's quite a bit of improvisation there. So I think it was number 9 or 10, right? Just go back to last week, the last video on my channel. There's quite a bit of improvisation, so you might want to check that out. And for your suggestion, Daniel, about song or how to use 2 or 3 tracks, we might be able to do it, but I probably should be in the studio for it. Okay, but I'm gonna run something by you really quick, and let me know if you're interested in it. Okay, I had an idea of maybe aside from this video, it doesn't have to be on these Hangouts, it could be something else, but I would like to make videos on taking one song, but many videos with songs from my own songs because I know them, and out of them maybe talk just a little bit about the production of the song, if there's something interesting about how it was recorded, but mainly for guitar players and musicians, because I could maybe talk a little bit about how I achieve a certain effect, like melodic or harmonic or rhythmic, and how the pieces get together. Maybe show a couple of licks that might be useful technique-wise or melody-wise, and then even talk a little bit about the composition, like the structure of the song. Maybe how verses and intros and choruses and breaks, and maybe if there's a like an abrupt change in the song, explain how I went there and why, and modulations and stuff like that. Something that could be useful for guitar players and musicians. But I would do it with my own songs, just because, first of all, I won't get striked out by YouTube because they're my own songs and I can do what I want. But also because I know them, not as much as you think I know them, but I can relearn them or learn them or analyze them, because once I record something, I never think about it, ever. I just have to relearn it when I play live, especially the solos, because most of my solos are improvised, and then I have to go back and relearn all of it. But I will of course study the progressions again and let you know how they work and why. So if you'd be interested in it, we could do it live, or I could just record them. Although I don't like recording videos. I'd rather do it live, but it would be more of a thing where I talk and you can ask questions, but it would be a bit more centered. It won't be as scatterbrained as these Hangouts where we talk about everything other than the title of the Hangout. Okay, but let's keep the Hangouts loose and improvised. But maybe I will do that with my songs if you guys want, and I can play a little bit of them and show you a few tricks. Okay, so I think some of you said yes. Danielle said yes. And Alex, that would be amazing, great. And cool, can't wait. All right, well then I will take that as a yes. So I will try to see how I can do it. And as soon as we can get back to the studios, maybe with a bit better quality, I'll prepare a few of them, or maybe we'll do them live, okay? So great, it was good seeing you again. And thanks for being here. I know there's so many people doing this kind of stuff right now, so you choosing to be here is very much appreciated. And see you soon. And what else? That's it. Oh, I wanted to ask you a favor. If you are on Spotify, I've been moving that a bit, because I find that a lot of people all over the world are listening to it on Spotify. And it's not for the money, probably. If you have music out there, you know how much money you make on Spotify. But if you would like to get on there and maybe follow my music on Spotify, not just listening, but actually follow it. I'm trying to build it up a bit, because I find that it's a great way to get to places that I would have never imagined that I would get with my music when I was starting out. And so usually it helps if there's more people following your Spotify, because then you get associated with more things. So, if you enjoy it only, of course, you don't have to. I'll still be happy to see you on these videos. But if you do enjoy it and you want to spread the word a little bit, it would be very much appreciated, because I've noticed that I can get to great, places that are out of a novel. There's Indonesia, and there's New Zealand, and there's Fiji Islands. It's everywhere. You can look at it where people are listening, and sometimes I get, it's great. There's like Siberia, and I would love for the music to reach more people. So if you guys want, it will be appreciated. Otherwise, I'll see you. Well, in any case, I will see you next week on Thursday, and I will let you know about that thing with from India. Yeah, I kind of guessed. I love India. I don't know if we talked before, but love India. I've been there for not many times, but for a long time, actually, for quite a bit. Loved it. Incredible place. So, and I have quite a few people following, listening to my music in India, and it's so great, because you see it and you're like, wow, look, Delhi or some more obscure place, and you imagine these people listening to it, and the geography of it. I don't know. It's very rewarding. So anyway, I'll see you next week, and I will let you know about those videos about my songs. And if you have specific questions about specific songs, please get in touch with me here on the comments, or Facebook and Instagram. All right? Raymond says metal. All right, I agree. I subscribe to that. All right, guys, thanks a lot for being here, and I will see you very soon.